What's going on, everyone? My name is Jake. This is Where I Talk Capes, and today we're back to talk about the MCU. Now, I haven't seen Thunderbolts again yet, so this is not my full spoilers Thunderbolts review. I'll maybe leave that for another couple of days, and then I'll talk about it after I've seen it again, like I said I would. Give you guys as well a wee chance to go see the movie before you come back here to listen to all of my thoughts on the movie. But today we're going to do something a little bit different, something I've not done on the channel just yet. We're going to talk about all of the MCU projects post-Endgame. Now, I was kind of going to maybe talk about all the Phase 5 projects and talk about where Marvel just pretty much went off the rails in Phase 5. I think there's only 2 projects I really like in Phase 5. Well, 3. However, Phase 5 was definitely the most disconnected and disjointed phase of the MCU so far. I was going to kind of talk about that as a whole, but then everyone kind of started saying that the Thunderbolts and how it's one of the best movies since Endgame, not just of Phase 5 or not just the Multiverse Saga, but since Endgame, which, I mean, technically is just the Multiverse Saga plus one other movie. But I wanted to come on here and talk about Marvel post-Endgame. We're going to go through every movie that's been released, not every project that's been released, because I've not watched all the TV shows. We're going to talk about every movie that's been released since Endgame, and I'm going to rank them from my least favourite all the way up to my favourite. Coming in then at 14 in last place, my least favourite movie since the release of Avengers Endgame. We all know what it is. It's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That's not a good movie. Admittedly, I'm typically quite a victim of going to see Marvel movies in the cinema and getting swept up in them and thinking they're a lot better than they are. And I actually fairly enjoyed that at the time. I knew it wasn't a perfect movie, I knew it kind of had its flaws, but, you know, it was a big Marvel movie. We hadn't really become thoroughly burnt out with Marvel at the time. And I went to go see it, I enjoyed it, I watched it back, and I was like, oh, it's bad. It's a bad movie, I didn't like this movie. A few of the things that didn't work for me, this kind of falls into the biggest trap of it feeling directed by committee. There's essentially no Peyton Reed in this. It's all filmed in a cupboard. It all looks like this. As well, this is the first proper big screen introduction into Kang the Conqueror, who was supposed to be this saga's villain. Now, it was already feeling way too late to properly introduce him to the larger audience. Obviously, he was in Loki as He Who Remains, but, you know, releasing him through this movie and having the big moment of, like, this is fucking, look at this. This is the huge big thing of Kang. This is who the Avengers are going to be fighting in a few years, and then he gets beat by Michael Douglas and Paul Rudd and ants. Especially with a lot of the marketing of that movie making it seem like Scott was going to either sacrifice himself or just simply be defeated by Kang and be killed by Kang in this movie. If Kang can kill an Avenger, Kang is an Avengers level threat. But what happens is Kang gets beat by ants and Michael Douglas. It's just a thoroughly disjointed movie. Apparently, in the original ending, Ant-Man and the Wasp were going to get trapped in the quantum realm, and Kang was going to escape, but they said no to that. Apparently, you can tell watching that it's a Franken movie. It's went through many reshoots and reworkings and retoolings and rewrites, and overall, it's a disjointed mess. It looks like shit, and again, diminishing returns in the Ant-Man movies. It's not good. And I think, especially considering the way they've since treated Kang, I should say, since all the stuff with Jonathan Majors came out, instead of just simply recasting him, because it's a character you can just recast because there's an infinite number of them. So if there's an infinite number of ones that look like Jonathan Majors, logic would dictate there's an infinite number of Kangs that look like me. Logic would dictate there's an infinite number of Kangs that could be Denzel if you want to get Denzel in, or if you want to get John Boyega, was a name I saw thrown about a lot, or fucking Meryl Streep. There's an infinite number of Kangs, you can do that. But they just completely cut his legs out from under him, and now they just pretend that he doesn't exist because of the real world situation with Jonathan Majors. All those things kind of put together makes Quantumania easily the film I've enjoyed the least since Endgame. Coming in at number 13 then is Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, as I mentioned there, I'm kind of have maybe been prone to watching a movie in the cinema and enjoying it a lot more. And at the time, I actually really enjoyed Love and Thunder. I didn't think it was a perfect movie, but I thought Love and Thunder was good. I actually really enjoyed Love and Thunder, and I'm going to be honest, I still enjoy Love and Thunder, but I enjoy it in a way that I enjoy what works, but there is a lot that doesn't work. I think Taika Waititi made Ragnarok, and it was such a revolution, and it was such a change from the kind of typical MCU style and typical MCU kind of way of doing things. It was funny, it had heart, it felt like such a Taika Waititi project, so it was very clear that they maybe loosened the reins for him on Love and Thunder, and he went a little bit maybe too far into it, and instead of making a Taika Waititi Marvel movie, he made a Marvel Taika Waititi movie, if that makes sense. And a lot of this is kind of undercut through jokes and things like that, and Yeah, it's. I like it. It has charm, but I can appreciate the fact that it's not very good. We have an ultra serious villain in Gore the God Butcher being portrayed by Christian Bale, who is absolutely fucking incredible in this movie. We have one of Marvel's best villains of the last 20 years, one of the best villains of the 21st century in Gore the God Butcher. We're taking inspiration from the Jason Aaron run on Thor, which is one of my favourite runs on any comic book ever. Wait there. Like I say, Aaron's run on Thor is one of my favourite runs ever. I have the first set of the full collection of that entire run with Gore the God Butcher and Jane Foster becoming Thor and Jane's cancer and all these things and all these incredibly serious stories and all these incredibly serious moments are just undercut by nonsense and bullshit. We essentially have a love triangle between Thor, Jane, and the Hammer. There is the moment where Lady Sif is dying in that scene ripped straight from the comic, which the illustrator of that comic wasn't paid for, and Lady Sif goes, "Oh well, I'm dying, but I died in battle. I will see Valhalla." And Thor goes, actually, you only cut your arm off. You're gonna survive, Lady Sif." And she's like, "No, I want to go to Valhalla." And he's like, "Unfortunately, you're not going to go to Valhalla." And it's so, and like, it just takes all the way out of it. And Christian Bale is so fucking good and so fucking unnerving in this movie. And it's just not very good. Now, it does have a lot of fun moments in it. I really like when Thor gives the power of Thor to all the children for one night only, and they're blasting lightning out of like their teddies and stuff. I think that's a lot of fun. But you have this, and again, that comes from this movie being reshot and restructured as it's going, and that leads to strain on the animators and strain on the CGI people, and you get what's his name? Idris Elba's character's son, whatever his name is. I can also not remember Idris Elba's character's name. Heimdall. Wherever you get Heimdall's son's floating head talking to everyone. When it works, but there's just too much that it just doesn't work. And when I look back on it, when I'm watching that movie, I have fun, and then when I stop watching that movie, I think about it more and I stop having so much fun. So I think that's why I have to put it here. Coming in at number 12 then is The Marvels, a movie that I actually don't mind. I just think, again, Franken movie directed by committee. We spoke about this in my Thunderbolts video. Nia DaCosta has essentially since came out and said that that's not the movie she wanted to make. That's not the movie she intended to make. That was the movie she was given. She just had to be there to make sure all the cameras were in place and shout action, essentially. She said, even before it came out, this was a Kevin Feige movie. This is what he wanted. I was just there to shepherd that vision across the finish line. As well with this, you have this leading in from one of the best Disney Plus shows in Miss Marvel. It's also directly following one of the worst Disney Plus shows and the single worst thing Marvel have ever put out, or the MCU has ever put out, with Secret Invasion. But you know, having the kind of three Marvels, essentially, you have Monica Rambeau, who is it, Spectre? Is that her name? She got powers from the Hex for WandaVision, which is also great. You've got Carol Danvers, and you've got Miss Marvel, you've got Kamala Khan. In this movie, I only care about Kamala Khan. And when it's fun when they're going to all these different worlds and they go to like a Disney princess world where everyone communicates through song and it's like fun and it's weird and they're going to these weird planets and it's a weird planet hopping adventure. But that's only really fun through the eyes of Kamala Khan. That's only really fun if we are following her full time throughout this movie. It's only fun if we're following, you know, the 16-year-old superhero fangirl who gets these powers through her first big planet-hopping superhero adventure. The villain as well, Zoe Ashton, I think you are amazing. I love you. This is not a slight on you. They just re-ran Ronan the Accuser, who's one of the worst Marvel villains. The only reason we kind of let Ronan the Accuser slide is because he's in Guardians of the Galaxy, and that movie isn't about the villain. That movie is about the team, and that's about the found family and the weird, lovable losers, which I think if you do it in this movie, could work. But again, it's not really that good here. You run back one of the weakest villains, essentially, and you run it in a movie where you don't have enough heart to cover up that fact. Now, I don't think this movie is a big, irredeemable, steaming pile of dog shit like many would have you believe, because it has 3 women leads, but I think not just making this Kamala Khan story and following Kamala Khan is its biggest issue here. And for that reason, it's kind of low down this list. And at number 11 then, we have Captain America Brave New World, or whatever dumb title I refer to it as from now until the end of the video. Don't call me out on it, I've called it its real title first. Remember that when I say something dumb. Now, I spoke about this movie when it came out. I did release a couple of videos on it, one with no spoilers, one full of spoilers, but just to kind of, my spoiler-free breakdown of this is Franken movie. You can tell that this was reshot and reworked and retooled multiple times. You can tell that everything's kind of being rushed to get over the finish line. You can tell there's no real one consistent artistic creative vision going through it. Tim Blake Nelson said that he had to film the movie twice. There was a completely different design for the leader originally. And again, you can't really do your top political thriller if you're refusing to actually make a point. You can't do your political intrigue and espionage movie if you don't have anything to say. I still think it's fun in places. I think the action is very tight. I think everything Harrison Ford does works. I think the CGI on the Red Hulk is almost always fantastic. In fact, I don't remember a time that it's not been good throughout that film. However, I do think building the whole film's marketing around the Red Hulk, and I get that that's your big Act 3 set piece, but if you hide that from the marketing, I think this is a much better movie, because a lot of the central conflict of this movie and a lot of the central tension of this movie is kind of revolving around President Ross getting stressed, and the music is always kind of swelling like, oh, is he going to do the Red Hulk thing, when we had never teased the President or General Ross up to this point ever becoming the Red Hulk in Marvel. So when you do that, if there had been teases of him becoming the Red Hulk and then we show it in the trailer, fair enough, that tension is warranted. But if we've never teased it and we just already know that that's going to happen, again, I feel like it robs any weight to these scenes in this movie. If we don't have him in the marketing material and then you show up and then throughout it, President Ross is like, oh, I'm getting really fucking stressed and he's raging all the time, you're going to be like, holy shit, are they going to pull the trigger on Red Hulk? And I think that kind of holds this movie back for me. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's a fine movie. I think it's quite fun. And I do think as well, it does a lot for tying back the continuity of the MCU. One of the things that's kind of a major point of discussion throughout phases 4 and 5 is that the wider world never really feels tied in. It does feel very tied in this movie, but I also think it ties that in at the expense of itself. I think the MCU feels the greater universe feels more intact than the sole plot of the movie at times. In at number 10 then, I have Eternals. Now, I've spoke a lot about how the movies before this that I've not really liked as much of this, they don't really have a consistent creative vision, with the exception of Love and Thunder, which I feel gave too much leniency to Taika Waititi. This does feel very Chloe Zhao. I think they got in Chloe Zhao and they wanted to make something a little bit more mature, something that's not your typical superhero movie, something that's a little bit more existential, something that asks a question, something that has a lot of dramatic weight to it. And they gave it to a director, they gave it to her, and they said, you know, you do your thing on this, we want you to make the Chloe Zhao movie. And I do think this works here, and I think most of what's happening in this movie really, really works for me. However, again, at the end, the big central conflict, there's just too much happening here. We have the Deviant plot, we have the Icarus plot, we have the Celestial plot. We have all three of these things kind of happening at once, and there's just too many strings to tie together. And when this movie is working through its kind of themes and emotions and things like that, we then just get, oh, there's a big man coming out the Indian Ocean, we could have to do a big fight now. And I think that fight scene really works. But when we talk about Thunderbolts, which did something really, really interesting, in place of a sort of big third act fight, you know, it really subverted the expectations of what a third act in a superhero movie is. It felt like this movie probably could have been the one to do it, but it again ends in big fight, big monster. I mostly really liked Eternals. I just think they tried to do too much. You know, they tried to tie in way too much here, and I think you stretch this, you know, there's 2 hours 20, I believe. You stretch this across a TV show on Disney Plus. People look back on this project with a lot more love and nostalgia, and not nostalgia, but good kind of goodwill to it as they compared to what they do now. And at number 9 then, we have Black Widow. I just watched Black Widow back the other night after watching Thunderbolts. I think Black Widow's a lot of fun. I don't think it's the perfect movie. I think it is a lot of fun. However, similar, one of the kind of biggest theme of this video is Frankenmovie. You can tell this was being reworked and restructured and reshot. David Harbour said it himself. David Harbour said that the final act of this movie was being reconfirmed and rewritten whilst they were filming the movie. So the start of the movie doesn't entirely feel connected to the end of the movie, because the end of the movie wasn't written for what they shot at the start of the film. And again, when you rewrite these things, you put a strain on the animators and a strain on your visual effects guys, and you get scenes that you get that scene and you have to deal with it looking like that. And you know, the big spy thriller, espionage thriller, the thing that works here is the ground level stuff. The thing that works here is the family dynamic. Yelena and Alexei, I mean, they outshine Natasha in the only movie she has ever given top billing, but I mean, Yelena and Alexei, they are two of my favourite characters, even more so now after watching Thunderbolts. Yelena as well was fantastic. And the Hawkeye show, But all that stuff really works, and then at the end, instead of having Taskmaster actually be something cool, it's Ray Winston going with one of those accents where you can just hear his accent through it, just going, I put a chip in my daughter's brain, and now she's Taskmaster, and now you're gonna have a sword fight whilst you're skydiving, and things like that. And I think you kind of strip that finale back into something smaller. You have a fantastic movie on your hands here, because it is a lot of fun. I still think the end is a lot of fun. However, it's completely different fun from what we've had in Acts 1 and 2. Act 3 feels a completely different movie. And I think you just kind of have to settle for one of those two movies and make that movie instead of mashing it. Rounding out the bottom half then, and at number 8 we have Spider-Man Far From Home. Once again, a movie I enjoyed a lot more when I watched it at the cinema. Looking back on it now, I think it feels a little bit thin. The kind of main conflict and the central plot of this movie, the thing driving everything forward, is that Tony Stark gave weapons of mass destruction to he's 17? He's 16 in this movie or something? Yeah, he's meant to be 16 in this movie, because Flash is trying to drink champagne and they're like, he got blipped, he's only 16, or whatever. So, in this movie, we find out that Tony Stark gave weapons of mass destruction to a 16-year-old who was dead until 5 minutes before he died. I also think when you actually think about it a little bit more, Mysterio's plan makes no sense, because what's he going to do when the actual Avengers level threat shows up? He's got his drones and he's got his projections and things like that, but, you know, Kang would have killed him. Maybe not Kang, he got killed by a big ant. Doctor Doom will kill him. He will tear him apart piece by piece. Overall, though, I think it's a lot of fun. Spider-Man movies are a lot of fun. I think the way it was shot, the action in this is shot fantastic. I think a lot of the Mysterio scenes work, especially like the fight leading up to the train moment is brilliant. But I think this is when we kind of began to... I mean, we'd already kind of gone too far with Spider-Man, but the part where one small change to this movie, and I think it was Nando's video that did it, it's where he's making his new suit and Happy puts on AC/DC, which was obviously the soundtrack to Iron Man 1 and 2. But Spider-Man Homecoming ends with the Ramones. And while we do the whole thing of, you know, Happy looking at him being like, oh, he reminds me of Tony, and he's, you know, beat-booping away making his suit. It's just something so simple. If he just goes, oh, hey, actually, can you throw me that? I want to put a song on it. And then he puts on the Ramones. And then we have a little nice bit of continuity here, because that moment is just like, remember Iron Man, remember Iron Man, remember Iron Man. However, I do think it is a lot of fun in the face of all these things. I also think they've taken away the main thing about Spider-Man being New York, where we have Spider-Man, or I guess the Night Monkey, fighting through like Prague and Venice and things like that. And it was fun, you know, Spiders on holiday, but taking it out of New York was a weird decision. I think a lot of the acting, or a lot of these plot decisions, are weird decisions. Overall, I do think it's a lot of fun, but I don't think it holds as much weight as Spider-Man movie before it, or the Spider-Man movie after it. In at number 7 then, we have Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Now, this movie is a movie I think I've gone back and watched it. I don't even know if I have gone back to watch it since, because it does just feel so heavy and uncharacteristically heavy, because obviously the real life passing of Chadwick Boseman majorly affected this movie. The fact they were able to get a movie out anyway is incredible. And now there's a lot of talk about, should they have just recast him? They recast William Hurt. I don't know. I'm not really that... I mean, I don't necessarily think they even needed to just keep doing the Thunderbolts story, but also, if there's one man whose legacy is intact and maybe should be protecting, it's not him, it is Chadwick Boseman. But Ryan Coogler has talked about how the script for the original Black Panther 2 was finished, and he doesn't know if Chadwick Boseman ever read it, but he sent that finalised script to him. And in the way that the first movie was going to be, or what the first movie was, a father and son story told with the son taking on the mantle of the Black Panther from his father and dealing with the immense weight of his father's legacy through both his father murdering his brother and Killmonger looking for revenge, as well as, you know, opening Wakanda up to the world and not being an isolationist nation anymore, and taking on all the responsibilities as the king and as the Black Panther. We were going to see the inverse of that, because in that movie we'd find out that Nakia was pregnant with T'Challa's son, and then T'Challa got blipped, and when he has returned he has found that she is remarried. However, he does have a son, and it was going to be him grappling with that, knowing that he wasn't there for his son's life, and now he's returned and he has to now live this with his son and all this. And I think that's a fantastic movie that we were unfortunately unable to see. And this movie does a lot with legacy and the passing of the mantle and the passing of the torch, and it feels incredibly heavy, with opening with the funeral for essentially our invitation to Chadwick Boseman's funeral is the opening of this movie when we see T'Challa's funeral. However, that isn't to say it's not without its flaws. I don't think Shuri is an entirely interesting character all the way through this movie. I think the social commentary with Namor works nowhere near as well as the social commentary with Killmonger makes in the previous movie. I just don't think they lean hard enough in on it, and maybe that's because they're trying to do too much with this movie, because they're trying to honour Chadwick Boseman and they're trying to move the plot forward. I just don't think a lot of Namor's kind of motivations work here. I do think he works. I think he's fantastic in this movie. I also think Riri Williams is fantastic in this movie. There's a lot to like here, but it can feel a little bit disjointed, and it also has such a heavy toll when you watch it because of the real life circumstances of the movie. Number 6 then is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, if you know me, you'll know this is one of my favourite Marvel films they have made, or could have been one of my favourite Marvel films they've ever made, I should say, because I love Jackie Chan. I love Hong Kong cinema. I love martial arts movies. I love Bruce Lee. I love Jet Li. I love Wire Fu. I love the practical Jackie Chan, police story, and even Rush Hour, like fighting and all that stuff. And I fucking love those movies. And this feels like you're bringing that to this. The start of the movie has this big, elegant fight scene between Shang-Chi's father and his mother. And it's Wire Fu, and it's all this kind of well choreographed. It's almost like a dance. And then we get the bus fight, and that feels like, to me, the bus fight reminds me a lot of, and I know it's not the most iconic Jackie Chan fight scene, but it reminds me of the Rush Hour movies. It reminds me of the pool hall fight. It reminds me of the massage parlour fight. It's just the things like that, the kind of dodging and the ducking and diving and kind of using the environment and all these things. And it's a brilliant approximation and a modern retelling of a Hong Kong action movie and a Hong Kong kung fu movie and all these things that I think are amazing. But it has the Marvel issue, which is Marvel have decided something is going to happen in this movie, which is they've decided that Shang-Chi is going to fight a big dragon. So at the big emotional climax of the movie, when he is fighting his father, and they're the two most interesting characters in this movie, and we get a big thematic fight to end this movie, something that works with the themes and the story they've been telling, a big dragon comes out, kills his dad, and he has to fight the big dragon. And it's up and 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 up, and the dragon. And I don't think that takes away a lot from it, but because I'm so invested and so into this movie, and so much of the stunt work and the fights are so practical and so tangible, then we get to the end, Marvel went, oh, well, we've already created in previs. Look at this. This here, we've already done all the CGI for it. This here is your big final fight, and there's going to be a dragon in it. How cool is that? Even though they've made a really cool and fairly grounded approximation of a Marvel's take on like a classic Jackie Chan film at times, which isn't enough to ruin it for me. I love this movie, but when I'm watching it, when I start watching the film in my head, I'm like, oh, this is so cool, and it's going to stop being really, really, really cool in like 5-10 minutes. And at number 5 then we have Deadpool and Wolverine. I thought this movie was a lot of fun. It is just fan service on fan service on fan service. Those are the Deadpool movies. I'm kind of into that. I was kind of bored of it with this though. I don't think it's necessarily the movie's fault though. I think it's more, we've said goodbye to the Fox X-Men universe 1,000,001 times, and we've still not even fully said goodbye, because James Marsden is going to be in Doomsday, and so is Patrick Stewart, and I know Patrick Swayze, he's not going to be in Doomsday. That'd be gross if he was in Doomsday. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen and Rebecca Romaine, all these guys are coming back for it. Like, why should we invest in this big emotional final farewell send-off to the Fox X-Men universe when it's just we've done it before? There is a lot to like here though. Emma Corrin as Cassandra Nova is one of the biggest standouts. They were absolutely fantastic, and yes, Emma Corrin does use they them pronouns, so please be respectful of that if we do discuss this movie down in the comments. I think they were fantastic in this movie as Cassandra Nova. I think a lot of the humour works here, and I think as well at times where the Deadpool humour can become too much, he never really has a proper, truly effective straight man next to him throughout these movies. Cable was across from him and the second Deadpool, whereas with this you've got Hugh Jackman right next to him, cutting everything and balancing everything so perfectly. And I thought it was a lot of fun. I think it's as good as a Deadpool movie will get, but again it felt like a big event, a big fan servicey event, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it felt more like fan service than it felt like we actually need to correct course and fix the issues with the MCU. So for that, as much as I think it could possibly be better than the movie I've got next, I just didn't enjoy it as much. Because the movie I've got next then at number 4 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Is it crazy that I've put it this high? No, I love Sam Raimi. Now, this is one of the movies that does feel directed by committee, but not as much as others. There are moments here where it feels very, very, very Sam Raimi, and then there's moments here where it's clear that their studio mandate has come through. I also think them not allowing Sam Raimi to watch WandaVision before it was finished, so then Sam Raimi just didn't want to watch it, that didn't help. They were giving Elizabeth Olsen new scripts, and she said I eventually just stopped reading drafts of the script because I didn't know what was going to happen. There's a lot of stuff that went on with this movie. This is also kind of being filmed at the back end of COVID, so the big Illuminati scene, no one filmed that together. Like, Patrick Stewart was in there on his own, Hayley Atwell was in there on her own, and they didn't know who they were going to be with until the movie came out. But I think in spite of all that, I have a lot of fun here. There's so much Sam Raimi nonsense in it. We have zombie Doctor Strange doing a stupid little accent. It's great. We have the Sam Raimi transition. I love this movie. I know there's a lot of flaws with this movie. I fucking adore this movie. This is one of those films that I saw it in the cinema and I thought to myself, I don't think I'm going to enjoy that as much when I watch it when it comes back onto Disney Plus. Then I watched it when it came back onto Disney Plus and I was like, oh my god, this is better than I remember it being. Because I love Sam Raimi. And it's not an out-and-out horror, but they allow Sam Raimi to kind of take some horror elements and some weird Sam Raimi elements and imbue them into this. This takes a lot more inspiration from like Evil Dead than it does from Spider-Man, which it needed to. I also think is our first real foray into the multiverse and our first real exploration of what the multiverse is and what it can do, and the exploration of incursions and things like that. It works really well here, and those are the things that I think those are the studio mandated things, the incursions and the things like that. They don't feel entirely Sam Raimi, but you put it all in, I think it works. I think it works a lot better than a lot of people want to say it does. God, I love Sam Raimi. We then come to our top three, and at number 3 I have Spider-Man No Way Home. Again, big fan servicey event more than it is a movie. Is it the best Spider-Man movie there's ever been? It's not. It's not. But it's fucking incredible. I watched this back not too long ago, and my opinion of it dropped quite a bit. Still have it really high here for a certain reason, for one reason, we'll get to it. But the reason my opinion dropped quite a bit is you can feel what Marvel clearly included as applause breaks. You can feel when Andrew Garfield comes in and he takes his mask off. He pauses for like 4 seconds before he says anything. Then when Tobey Maguire just walks through, he's like, And he's looking around this normal, just this normal house in New York before he's like, oh, hey guys, hi, we're going to do some plot now. Like they do that. And they've not been like edited out of the release of the home versions of it. But you have to remember the context in which that was released. That was the first time I was allowed to sit next to someone in the cinema for nearly 2 years. That came out at the end of 2021. Now, the cinema that I go to, Cineworld in Glasgow, they never fully shut. They shut a wee bit, yeah, but like they still were able to get a lot of releases out. You just kind of had to leave a lot of space in between yourself and others, and then that kind of, I think it was originally you need to leave 4 seats between groups, then it became 3 seats in between groups, then it became 2 seats in between groups, then it became 1 in between groups. And for a year and a half I'd been coming into the cinema with all my stuff, and I would just put my bag on a chair next to me and I would be good. And then I went in with my backpack full of snacks and I sat down into my seat. Oh, there's people on either side of me here. There are people here on either side of me. And now, we weren't in America, so we didn't get people doing the worm. But there was like cheering, and there was kind of everyone just in this big feel-good moment. And it was great. And I think as well, watching this back and watching Deadpool and Wolverine back, it shows how much more I care about Spider-Man than almost any other character in comic books. Even with my intense love of Batman, when Michael Keaton showed up in The Flash, I was more excited for Michael Keaton than I was for it being like Batman, if that makes sense. This movie just showed how special Spider-Man is and how deep of a place Spider-Man has in everyone's hearts, and a real tribute to the 3 generations of Spider-Man with their villains and their rogues coming through. But it never undercuts our Peter, it never undercuts Peter 1, Tom Holland's Peter. He at no point feels incapable next to the other 2. They all feel like total equals, they all feel fantastic together. Now, there is a lot of talk about the kind of the plot device of the spell, because Peter goes, oh, I didn't get into uni, now my life's weird because people know I'm Spider-Man. I'm going to go talk to my wizard friend and see if he can fix it for me. And he gets him to add more and more things onto this, and I've seen a lot of people say just basically, why would they not discuss it beforehand? But he's meant to be, 17 in this movie? He's a dumb shithead kid. I think that works fine. It is a little bit contrived to get us to the multiverse, but it's fine. Willem Dafoe, fantastic in this. Alfred Molina, fantastic in this. Toby, Andrew, Jamie Foxx, everyone in this is working fantastically, and it leads us into where we always needed Spider-Man to go in the MCU. the street level. As we get into the top 2 then, in at number 2 we have the most recent release in Thunderbolts. Jesus Christ, I love this movie. And I said that in my last video. I feel like a lot of the movies of phases 5 and 6 have been, I like that but. And if we go through everything here on this list mostly is an I like that but. I like No Way Home, but it's just glorified fan service. I like Multiverse of Madness, but I feel like they took the creative reins out of Sam Raimi's hand a little bit too much. I like Deadpool and Wolverine, but it's just fan service. I like Shang-Chi, but the ending kind of falls off a cliff. I like Wakanda Forever, but it's clear it should have been another movie, and I can go through the rest of these movies here. I just fucking love this movie. I don't think it's perfect. If you want to watch my spoiler-free video on Thunderbolts, you can go watch that to hear my full thoughts, spoiler-free. But overall, I think it's just a very distilled version of Jake Schreier's vision. I think the characters all work brilliantly here. It introduces these players to a new audience without having to necessarily have seen everything. It doesn't have the required reading, but it will obviously improve your viewing experience if you have watched that. I think it's just really, really good. Sentry is brilliant. Lewis Pullman is brilliant. Alexei is brilliant. Yelena is brilliant. I just think it's a great character-driven movie. And again, I've mentioned it here, the very interesting subversion on your Act 3 superhero movie ending. It's brilliant here. I can't think of a movie apart from the Eternals that could have pulled this off, really, and it's really, really good. That, of course, then means that my favourite movie post-Endgame is obviously Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. If you know me, you know how much I love Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy, the original one, is one of my favourite movies of all time. It's probably my second favourite comic book movie of all time, only behind Into the Spider-Verse. It's a fantastic movie, and this is a brilliant movie, especially with the way it was such a troubled production. You know, the script was finished, or the first draft was done in 2018, then James Gunn is fired over old tweets, then he goes to DC to make the Suicide Squad. Marvel bring him back to do this, and we just have, and then as well the fact that, you know, the Russos and Feige had decided to pair up Thor and the Guardians at the end of Endgame, and Taika Waititi and James Gunn clearly didn't want to do that, so they've already separated by the time this movie starts. I think it's brilliant. I think humanising, I mean, Rocket has always been the one who is the most relatable and the most human out of all the characters, which is weird because there is an actual human on the team, but the plot with Rocket is heartbreaking. The plot with the High Evolutionary is incredible. Woody Woody is one of the best Marvel villains of all time in that movie. You know, you see Chris Pratt at some of his best, you see Drax at some of his most vulnerable, and shown why Batista is probably the greatest actor to come out of wrestling. You just see all this stuff here, and nothing in this movie doesn't work for me. I think this is a 10 out of 10 perfect superhero movie to round out a 10 out of 10 perfect superhero trilogy. Not only is it a send-off for a few of these characters, but it's also a send-off for James Gunn before he goes over to DC, or before he went over to DC, I should say, to start what we now know as the DCU. I just think this is a wonderful movie, and the love that's poured in to every aspect of this film is so evident. I don't think you can watch this film and not come away with a smile on your face. And the way it takes what was given to them through the Avengers movies and still tells its story around that without really having to make any major changes, apart from one, obviously, it works perfectly. This movie is fantastic. It's one of the best movies Marvel has ever made, and it is far and away the best post-Endgame project. So that's it for me today. That is my ranking of all the post-Endgame MCU projects. Now, like I say, we're going to get another Thunderbolts video soon. We're going to talk about the whole movie and all the spoilers. But for now, I just wanted to do something a little bit fun, a little bit different, and I wanted to rank all of the post-Endgame projects, because I've been thinking a lot about post-Endgame MCU, especially since seeing Thunderbolts. Let me know what you thought of my list down below. Is there anything you'd have higher, anything you'd have lower? Are you going to tell me that Quantumania is number 1 and Guardians 3 is a big steaming pile of dog shit? Probably not, but let me hear all your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Show this to all your friends. Tell them about the handsome man on YouTube with the good comic movie opinions. Once again, guys, my name is Jake. This is where I talk capes, and I'll see you next time.